Hello, children of St. Paul's. If you're an adult watching, this is for you too, as we are all children of God. You probably know that our church is named after a brave fellow named Paul, whose name was Saul before he was converted to being a follower of Jesus. You might remember that in a previous children's time, we learned that Saul had been a brutal persecutor of the early Christians shortly after Jesus was crucified. Christians were having a rough go of it in those early days. They were seen as a threat. Can you imagine? Christians, whose belief is founded on Jesus, the most loving person ever, a threat? But that's the strange thing about people, you know. What goes on in the head, what we think, can make us behave in ways that make no sense when you look at reality. After his conversion to the Jesus movement, it wasn't called Christianity yet, Paul saw the reality of Jesus as a force of love in the world, and he bravely went around starting churches and writing letters of encouragement to the Christians in those churches. He called those people his beloved. That's pretty loving, right? So I'm going to read a part of a letter he wrote to people in a place called Philippi, which is in Greece, pretty far from where Jesus lived. Christian churches were being formed further and further across the world. Notice how Paul encourages the Philippians to use their minds, to think in ways to help behave as Jesus did. The mind is one of God's amazing gifts to us humans, so we need to use it the right way. We all see around us, don't we, that people are misusing this great gift. So here's the part of the letter from Paul to the Philippians. I'll read it slowly. Count how many things Paul suggests that we pay attention to in our thinking. Hint, each way comes after the word whatever. Here's the passage. Beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Keep on doing the things you have learned and received, and heard and seen in me, and the God of peace will be in you. So, how many did you count? Well, I counted 6. Now, do you remember some of the things that Paul suggested to think about? Which ones do you remember? Well, luckily I have them written right here in front of me, and I plan to memorize them later so that I can carry them around in my head as convenient reminders. Maybe you'd like to write them down so that you too can remember them easily. Do you have paper and pencil handy? Or maybe an electronic device at your fingertips? You might even be able to record me as I say them. So, here they are. The first is true. That's kind of hard to know sometimes, right? But I think Paul is referring to Jesus and the way Jesus referred to God and God's will when he told his stories and taught his disciples. The second is honorable. I think we know what that means. It doesn't need a lot of explanation. The next is just. Remember, we talked about that in an earlier children's time. It has to do with treating all people the same and helping people who might not have the same opportunities as we do to get a fair shake. Next, and the fourth way to think about, is what is pure. The image I have in mind is about a beautiful sunset or sunrise with no air pollution, just as God created it. Fifth is pleasing. Now that's an interesting one because that could go all over the place. I think Paul is talking about our inner experience. That is, what makes us calm and what brings us joy on the inside, in our hearts. Finally, Paul suggests focusing on what is commendable. There it is. That's a word you probably don't use too much, so here's a dictionary definition. Deserving praise. So, think about things that deserve praise. I mean, really deserve praise. The shape we're using here to illustrate Paul's focuses of thinking is a hexagon, which has 6 corners. Each way of thinking is an important corner of the mind. Check this out. There we go. Notice how we can put Jesus at the center of our minds if we take Paul's suggestion to think about those 6 things, which all point toward Jesus. So, let us use our minds as God intended. Our lives will take a nice shape if we do. Keep the faith. All of us at St. Paul's love all of you dearly.